Welcome to NTD News Today. I'm Don Ma. Here are today's top stories. Newly released records say the FBI and the NSA had low confidence in 2016 that Russia was behind an alleged hack of DNC servers. But this detail was left out of a memo to then President Obama. A driver in Los Angeles crashed into a crowd, leaving at least 30 injured. The driver was pulled from the vehicle and shot after the crash. A big shift for cryptocurrency. President Trump signs the Genius Act, setting federal rules for stablecoins, cryptos backed by the US dollar. What it means for your digital wallet coming up. Hundreds of Falun Gong practitioners are marching in New York City today to call for an end to the Chinese Communist Party's repression tactics taking place in the US. Why is obesity so much higher now than it was 50 years ago? Insights from a top weight loss doctor on how our eating patterns have changed and how when we eat can be most important as much as what we eat.
This is NTD News Today, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us. An update on the 2016 Trump-Russia investigation. Records released by DNI Tulsi Gabbard's office show that in 2016, the FBI and the NSA had low confidence that Russia was behind an alleged hack of Democratic National Committee servers. Despite this, a memo was prepared for President Barack Obama that blamed Russia for the hack and leak 2 days after the FBI and NSA issued this assessment. Their assessment wasn't mentioned in the memo either. This is according to records released by the DNI's office. The revelation is the latest twist in the decades-long controversy and lies at the very root of the now discredited Russia collusion narrative that Trump allegedly conspired with Russia to influence the 2016 election. Special counsel Robert Mueller ended his investigation with no evidence to support collusion. The suspect behind a car crash incident in East Hollywood, Los Angeles, has been identified as 29-year-old Fernando Ramirez. He allegedly drove a Nissan Versa into the crowd of people around 2 a.m. Saturday morning, leaving at least 30 injured.
Looked out, saw the car go into a bunch of people. So I ran over there. 2 gunshots, car crash, and then more gunshots after. So that's what so far says.
The first responder described the scene as very chaotic.
Apparently, there was a vehicle that had somebody that lost consciousness inside the vehicle.
After the crash, bystanders pulled the driver from the vehicle. He was then shot in the back by someone across the street. He was transported to the hospital and is currently listed in stable condition. The shooter remains at large tonight. Authorities haven't released any information regarding the driver's immigration status. U.S. President Donald Trump on Friday signed a law to create a regulatory regime for dollar-pegged cryptocurrencies known as stablecoins, a milestone that could pave the way for the digital assets to become an everyday way of making payments and move money. Joining us now to discuss is Steve Hanke, professor of applied economics at Johns Hopkins University. Steve is also the author of the book Making Money Work: How to Rewrite the Rules of Our Financial System. Also joining us is economist Christian Briggs, CEO of Hard Asset Management. Okay, so good afternoon to you both. Steve, I'll start with you today. Can you break down for us and explain the Genius Act, what it means for the future of digital assets and cryptocurrencies?
Well, that act plus another one are really setting up an uneven playing field between cryptocurrencies and banks. And my contention all along is if it walks like a bank and talks like a bank, it is a bank. And that's what cryptos are. And we have all kinds of regulations and legislation that affects banks. And we don't need anything new, but we have something new. And the something new has been paid for by the crypto lobby. So it sets up an uneven playing field between cryptos and banks. So that, in the long and the short of it, that's two of the bills. which I think were unnecessary. The third one deals with crypto and prohibits the U.S. Federal Reserve from issuing digital currencies, which I think is a good thing, because that's all we need is the U.S. government with the means to be snooping and controlling and surveilling our purchases. I mean, can you imagine if we had a digital dollar issued by the Federal Reserve, and of course there would be all kinds of legislative restrictions that they couldn't interfere with private individuals. But do you think the government would follow those laws? The way things are going now, the president could cut you off if he didn't like what you were doing, and he probably would.
Okay, Christian, same question to you. What is the Genius Act? And can you also answer the question, what problem is the Genius Act solving? Was there a problem?
Well, and some good words from my colleague there. He's right about having the Federal Reserve. You don't want the Federal Reserve involved in the issuing of money. First of all, on a retail scale, they're obviously prohibited by law. On a commercial scale, Powell did make comments a few years ago that there would be some kind of an advantageous opportunity for the Federal Reserve to do that, but we don't want that. So let's go right to the heart of the question. What is the Genius Act and what's it good for? And then in the short term and of course the long term, because the viability of the act has to be based on what the net results are going to be. So let's talk about those. First of all, it shores up a demand for short-term treasuries in U.S. dollars. And here's how that works. Stablecoins will be regulated by the federal government, which is good. There'll be some limitations on privacy. I mean, they're going to be monitoring things so nefarious and bad actors aren't involved in the transactional process of stablecoins. But putting that aside, the good news about the Genius Act, and it was really well written. There might be some changes I would have done, but overall, it's a very good bill. Because as stablecoins become more and more utilized in everyday payment processing, which is a digital token that has a unique serial identification number, so that the buyer and the sellers can always make sure that they're getting exactly what they expect in the number of them, it does create a demand for short-term treasuries, because stablecoins have to be backed by one of two things or both: U.S. dollars and two, U.S. treasuries, primarily short-term. In that 3-month, 6-month, even that 1-year period for the duration of the bill. So I love the act and the way it was written. I think Tim Scott and Senator Hagerty did a great job. There is the Clarity Act, which obviously is the House version, and the House passage is the Clarity kind of adds to the overall understanding of how the regulatory environment's going to be. But the good news is the Genius Act will be wrapped with an anti-CBDC bill that Warren Davidson, congressman from Ohio, was very advocation about, and saying that we've got to have this to ensure that they don't take what is now been made into law to the next level, which would be a centralized digital currency, which once you go on a centralized system, that gives the ultimate power to the central bank or whoever that may be. But the Genius Act overall is going to really help in short-term treasury demand, and number two, shoring up the dollar from a demand standpoint.
Okay, Steve, we'll get to central bank digital currencies a bit later, but on the Genius Act, do you think it's going to more legitimize stablecoins? That's in the eyes of traditional financial institutions.
Yes.
Would you like to elaborate on why you think so?
Well, it gives a good housekeeping seal of approval to stablecoins. I don't think it's necessary. I think the whole thing is rubbish that's just been paid for by the crypto lobby to get an, shall we say, in a way, an unfair advantage relative to commercial banks in the United States. But you asked a question and I answered it. Yes, I think having a defined set of rules governing, whether you like the rules or not, or whether you think they're necessary or not, is a separate issue. You asked the question, would this encourage, and it will encourage, and we know this, by the way, because who paid for the legislation? Who poured the money into Congress to do this? The crypto lobby. Who poured a tremendous amount of money into Trump's campaign for president? more than any other single group, it was the crypto lobby. So why do you think Trump is wasting his time peddling crypto? Well, he's making a lot of money, and his sons are making money off of it. I guess that is an incentive to do it. But this is really third world kind of activity going on, having politicians involved in all this stuff. This is not really what you find this kind of thing in Africa.
But Steve, let me follow up on what you just said. What are your thoughts then on the ban on congressional profiteering? There's a ban in there from stablecoins.
That's true. And do you think it's going to work?
Well, I'm not an expert, but you can tell me if it works or not in your opinion.
They have all kinds of rules about insider trading in the U.S. Congress, and it happens every second. I mean, they're front running every piece of legislation going through Congress is being front run by all kinds of people who have leaked information about what's going on and are, in many cases, either the members of the U.S. Congress or relatives of members of the Congress. This has been going on blatantly for all kinds of since the U.S. Congress began. So, yeah, there's something in the legislation to deal with that supposedly, but you know, if you believe in that, you got to be believing in the tooth fairy.
Well, Christian, what do you think the ban on profiteering from stablecoins?
Well, there was a lot of conversation right there. There's about 3 different topics I like to address. But your point is I think that the lobbying by the cryptocurrency industry, Steve's correct. There was a lot of lobbying. We're not going to say there wasn't, because what the cryptocurrency lobbyists or the lobbying of said legislation that obviously came through with the Genius Act. Let's take a step back for 1 second. We all know that the Federal Reserve had been working behind Congress's back for about 7 years to develop and create a centralized currency. Now, they were able to determine and to justify that because the Federal Reserve, under Powell's own testimony, and I've done a lot of work for Congress and to bring this attention to them, was under the Hamilton Project, where they determined that commercial banking, or at least a commercial viable central bank digital currency, was not usurping Congress's authority. This is a fact. There's white papers that go all the way from Amazon to Citi to Visa to MasterCard that have confirmed that there was a coalition of people behind the scenes to create a centralized digital dollar. See, the difference, though, when the Bankers Association, who I met with one of their top executives, with one of the leading members of the House, in fact, he was a chairman of one of the committees, and he did say that the Fed Now platform, which was released by the Federal Reserve as a better way of which the commercial banking industry could bring their clients and do systematic payments transactions and even asset management through the Federal Reserve. So the commercial banks were told, oh, go to Fed Now, send us all your business, we'll do the transactions. And what that really was, in the words of one of the co-founders of Ripple, which is the XRP token, which is actually the backbone for central bank digital currencies globally, said the Fed Now was a gateway that had Kamala Harris won. We were going to issue a central bank digital currency. Fast forward, here's President Trump saying, no, that's not going to happen. So as much as the crypto industry lobbied President Trump, they weren't doing it just from a profiteer standpoint. Yeah, there's obviously going to be motivation in anything we do to make money. And maybe Trump's children do have an interest in crypto because it is a good asset to have. That is not the motivation. The motivation was one of 3 things, Don. I'm going to make sure it's very clear. Number 1, we had to bring crypto to the 21st century into the United States. We had to be the regulatory authority in order to be able to stabilize what stable coins were going to do and not have nefarious actors out there take advantage of Africa or South America doing it. No. The United States has always been a leader in the innovation and the regulatory of new ways of which technology rolls out. So Trump took the stance, I've got to do this. Senator Hagerty said, I've got to help do this. David Sachs, all of them did this. And what is it doing now? Now we have the framework to be able to put forth a crypto policy that's not only going to help the US dollar, it's going to help short-term treasuries that could lower interest rates without having to have the kind of the dueling between Powell and Trump and all that kind of stuff, which may or may not have been good lowering the rates. This will help. But what it really did it put the Federal Reserve on notice. We know what you were up to. You can't do it. We took the automatic, proactive, precautionary measures to put legislation through so we control it, not a third-party, non-government agency of the Federal Reserve under the Hamilton Project. I know this because I addressed members of Congress for 4 or 5 years. We worked on this to determine what they were doing and what was the best course of action to go around what would have been a centralized currency. Yeah, that's called programmable money. Like what Warren Davidson, Congressman from Ohio, said a few days ago on the House floor, you don't want communism when it comes to your monetary policy of any kind. Communism in any form is bad, let alone your money. So this Genius Act is the first step to do the framework of regulatory environment, still maintaining consumer privacy, and it's a win for the United States debt market because now they're going to have a form of backstopping. And don't be surprised if it becomes a PAC stablecoin in the future, and that could be a gold-backed stablecoin here in the United States. That would really shore up the dollar and send Treasuries interest rates dropping and Treasuries skyrocketing.
Okay, Steve, so building off of what Christian said about central bank digital currencies and communism, Steve, is it fair to say that CBDCs are more compatible with authoritarian systems like that of China than democratic ones?
Well, it gives number one. I'm opposed to central bank digital currencies. End of story. So Christian and I are on the same page when it comes to that issue. And the reason for that, there are many reasons, but the main reason is that you've got the surveillance state watching every transaction that you're making, and if they don't like what you're doing, if they don't like what, the fact that Christian is buying a new Mercedes, they press a button and all of a sudden he's dead. He's not going to be able to buy anything. So it is compatible, as you put it, with a authoritarian or a dictatorial kind of regime. But it also means that even in the United States, where you might, if you had a digital central bank currency, you would certainly have restrictions on the surveillance aspect that the government could impose written into law. But along the theme that I was talking about earlier, do you think the president or the Fed would honor the law and follow the law? And as I said before, you've got to be dreaming. I mean, you'd have to be believing in the tooth fairy. I mean, right now, for example, I can't imagine if we had a centralized digital currency, Trump, the way he thrashes around and goes after people he doesn't like, I can't imagine that he wouldn't be cutting them off. Even though it might be illegal, he'd do it anyway.
Well, gentlemen, we have to leave the conversation here because we're out of time. Thank you both for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
Great to be with you.
Coming up, illegal troubles, or rather legal troubles, are intensifying for former Brazilian president Jair Bolsonaro. Bolsonaro's home was raided. He has to wear an ankle bracelet and he's facing up to 43 years in prison. Our Latin America correspondent, Arian Pazdar, is standing by live. President Trump signs a new law targeting fentanyl traffickers. We'll hear more from a retired ICE agent on why stopping the flow from China and Mexico is key to saving lives from this deadly drug. More just in a moment here on NTD News Today.
Shenyun Creations, the streaming platform from Shenyun, featuring world-class dance, past programs, and all original music. Masterclasses, behind the scenes, comedy, and more. Explore shenyuncreations.com.
As we naturally age, many people are getting zero amount of this incredible and unique substance. That's when we start seeing an impact in our joints, skin, nails, and even our digestion.
People ask me, Dr. X, what is the #1 supplement I should be taking? My answer is multi-collagen protein.
people's reactions to me, people were like, "What are you doing? What is going on? You look amazing. You have a glow about you."
What makes Ancient Nutrition Multi-Collagen stand out from other brands? 10 types of collagen. It's grass-fed, pasture-raised with vitamin C and probiotics. It's proven to reduce joint discomfort rapidly, continuously, and persistently. It improves the appearance of crow's feet after 4 weeks and improves skin tone after 8 weeks. And it promotes hair thickness, growth, and a reduction in hair breakage.
It has transformed everything from my hair. Like, my hair was starting to kind of just, come out, and I don't have that anymore. My skin feels amazing.
Call the number on your screen and find out how to get a free bottle when you order, plus free shipping and our 30-day money-back guarantee. And as a bonus, we will include Dr. Josh Axe and Jordan Rubin's revolutionary book, Multi-Collagen Makeover, free with your order, plus free shipping and free returns.
I have implicit trust in Dr. Axe because the plan worked. I'm living proof of it.
This is the collagen protein that is backed by clinical studies. It's what my family uses, it's what I use, and I know you're going to benefit in a big way as well.
Love the results or get your money back. This special TV offer is not available in stores. Call the number on your screen or go online now.
£6 prescription glasses from Select Specs are always great value. There are no offer codes or first-time customers only. Anyone can buy them, anytime. And you can upgrade to Select Specs Express for next-day delivery. And with deferred payments, you can spread the cost.
See now, pay later with Select Specs £6 specs. Next day delivery and deferred payment options available at selectspecs.com/£6.
Legal troubles for former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro are intensifying. President Trump keeps supporting Brazil's most popular right-leaning politician, first imposing tariffs on Brazil, then sending a letter to Bolsonaro. Let's bring in our Latin America correspondent now, who's standing by live. Arian, what exactly happened this week? Bolsonaro's home was raided, and now he has to wear an ankle bracelet?
Hey Don, good to see you. Thank you for having me. Yeah, that's right. So just a few days ago, Brazilian police raided the home and the political headquarters of former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro. Now, Bolsonaro is currently facing charges for allegedly trying to overthrow the government after the 2022 presidential elections. That's because some Bolsonaro supporters stormed government buildings because they thought the election was stolen. That's actually very similar to what happened on January 6th in DC. In Brazil, it happened on January 8th of 2023, exactly 2 years and 2 days after the DC incident. So a lot of similarities there. But let's go back to the raids this week. Those raids were ordered by Brazil's Supreme Court. The court also ordered that Bolsonaro, he now has to wear an ankle bracelet, can't leave his house at night. He's not allowed to use social media. He's not allowed to contact foreign diplomats or approach any embassy. And also, he can't communicate with anybody who's also under investigation by Brazil's Supreme Court. And that's crucial because this includes the son of former President Bolsonaro, which is Eduardo Bolsonaro, a Brazilian lawmaker living in exile in the United States, because he's also facing charges. So Eduardo went to the US. But now, in terms of former President Bolsonaro, the prosecution is seeking to send him behind bars for 43 years. That's the sentence they are seeking. And after the raids on Thursday, former President Bolsonaro commented on the ongoing trial that he's facing. Let's take a look.
There's no doubt that the court will convict me, so much so that I'm not even being judged by the full court. It's by a specific panel where the Supreme Court has a certain amount of influence over the others, so I have no doubt I'll be convicted.
And I just want to add here real quick, Don, again, as I just said, that the trial is still ongoing, so we don't know if Bolsonaro will really have to go to prison, and if so, for how long, Don?
Now, Arian, in this interview that we just saw, Bolsonaro also said that he knows President Trump likes him. For example, saying that he was invited to Trump's inauguration. Besides only 3 other heads of state, despite the fact that Bolsonaro isn't even in office anymore. What exactly did Trump do this week to support Bolsonaro?
Yeah, that's right, Don. And it didn't just start this week. I think it was last week when President Trump imposed a 50% import tariff on Brazilian goods. Trump at the time sent a letter to the current Brazilian government saying that the tariff is to counter what Trump calls a witch hunt against Bolsonaro. And now this week, President Trump sent a letter of support to Bolsonaro himself, saying that this trial against him should end. Trump also condemned what he called attacks on free speech, both in Brazil and in the United States. And also just a few days ago, President Trump explained his support for Bolsonaro. Let's take a look at that.
President Bolsonaro is not a dishonest man. He loves the people of Brazil. He fought hard for the people of Brazil. He negotiated trade deals against me for the people of Brazil, and he was very tough. And he was tough because he wanted to do a good deal for his country. He was not a dishonest man. And I believe it's a witch hunt, and it shouldn't be happening.
And just to add here real quick, Don, very interesting actually that Trump and Bolsonaro, they are actually pretty similar in the way they do politics. So much so that some people actually call Bolsonaro the Latino version of President Trump. Don?
Okay, Arian, we're out of time for now. We have to wrap up. We'll continue this conversation later. Now, Brazil's Supreme Court ordered the raids on Bolsonaro, and the court also followed the following things. He has to wear an ankle bracelet, and he can't leave during nighttime. We have that and more after the break.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That first time seeing my son, I feel like my life did a 180. I was already trying to change my perspective of life and really just be a father figure that I never had. Being present is the most important part. I'm still growing every day, becoming a better version of myself.
I debate all day. It's what I do. But there are some things that are undebatable, like your mental health, my own mental health. I was in a dark place when my brother passed away in a car accident. I've never been more devastated than the day I lost my mom. I was depressed, miserable, in ways I never imagined. I reached out, and my sisters came. My pastor, my therapist. They helped me get through it. I found that the more I spoke up, the healthier my mind became. The chaos that was in me began to subside. I was more focused, clear. When you love your mind, you can go so much further. That's not up for debate. Find mental health resources at loveyourmindtoday.org.
Welcome back to NTD News Today. I'm joined now in studio by NTD health correspondent and host of Vital Signs, Brandon Fallon. Vital Signs zooms in on important aspects of health that influence our lives. So Brandon, it's always nice to see you, and I believe we're talking about food and diets today. Great topic.
That's right, Don. Yeah, fantastic to see you. Great to be on again. Yeah, I have the pleasure of speaking to a fantastic doctor. He's the author of the Obesity Code, and he's really kind of led the way in terms of low-carb dieting and intermittent fasting. He's written this groundbreaking book. And he draws our attention to the fact, if you look back at photos, maybe going back to the 70s, like, I don't know if you're a Star Wars fan, but if you look at these pictures of the line to go to these movies, you don't see that many obese people. But you cut to the present, and it's not hard to see there is an obesity problem out there. And the question is why? And he says, maybe it's part of it is definitely what we're eating, but it's also about how often we're eating and when we're eating in general. And that's he describes how that factors into how the body processes or stores fat in this first clip.
All right.
If you think about how the body gains weight, it's about the thing that you eat, but it's also about sort of how long you spend not eating, right? Because when you're eating, your body is going to store calories, which is a form of food energy. And when you're not eating, then your body takes the stored food energy out of storage, right? So body fat is a store of food energy, right? It's calories that you've eaten and get stored away. So in order to use those calories that you've stored away, the body fat, you need to not eat, right? That just makes sense. The whole thing is that we spend so much time thinking about the foods that we're eating and not eating, and we don't think about the amount of time we spend fasting, which is simply the amount of time we're not eating, because that's the only time that you can actually burn body fat. You can't actually burn body fat if you're eating. Like when you eat, your body senses it, the hormone insulin gets released, and what insulin does, what its job is to tell your body, hey, food is coming in, calories are coming in, we need to store some of it. Because when you're not eating, like during sleep and so on, then you need something stored away. So that's what insulin's job is. If you are eating constantly, well, basically you're constantly telling your body, store body fat, store these calories as body fat. So you can't actually take any out, because when you're storing it, insulin blocks you from taking stored calories out, right? Why would it allow you to store calories and take them out at the same time? It doesn't. It actually blocks you from doing it. So the whole point is that if you want to lose body fat, then one, the foods that you eat are important, and it's much more than the calories. Calories is only a piece of it. But it's the foods that you eat, but also how long you spend not eating.
So a little personal fact about how I eat. So between lunch and dinner, I actually don't eat anything, not even like healthy snacks. Uh-huh. So I make sure I have a really good lunch. Like I'm full after eating so that I can make it to dinner. I don't know if that has anything to do with my slender frame.
I'd say it's definitely contributing, Don. Yeah, there's this kind of snacking culture that's really taken hold that it definitely wasn't there 50 years ago. And Dr. Fung talks about this, how it's almost like we need to be eating constantly. You have your main meals, and then if you're sitting at the computer, you're eating. You have a pre-bed snack. And like kids are encouraged in school. Like it's not just lunch. There's some kind of the parents are encouraged to send a snack with them before dinner time.
All right, you have another clip, right?
We have another clip here, just talking about how insulin, which is stimulated by eating food, how it changes the body from one state to another, and how this influences weight loss.
All right, let's take a look.
But the key with fasting is that you're dropping insulin as quickly and as efficiently as possible. So you're basically trying to get yourself into a state. Remember, insulin is this hormone that switches you from the fed and the fasted state. So your body exists in either the fed state, insulin is high, you want to store calories, or it's in the fasted state, which is insulin is low, you want to burn calories. So in fasting is a way to switch very quickly, because I don't think that there's a better way to switch from the fed into the fasted state, because when you eat zero, you can't get lower than zero, right? So you're going to move yourself into the fasted state and you're going to start burning calories, which is the sugar. Your body stores calories in two ways: sugar, and if you have too much sugar, you have type 2 diabetes, and fat. If you have too much fat, you have obesity. So the point of that is that you are going to go into the sort of fat burning mode, because that's what happens when you drop insulin. It is not going to be super fun. It's not, you are going to have hunger issues. You can deal with that in different ways. So the interesting thing about fasting is that hunger actually starts to decrease once you pass a certain point. So if you were to skip breakfast, for example, or lunch, well, you are going to be hungry. But if you simply ignore it, then your hunger actually starts to drop down. So they've done studies where they fast people for 24 hours and measure their hunger levels and measure ghrelin, which is the hunger hormone. And what happens is that if you skip your meal that you're typically used to getting, then your ghrelin goes up, your hunger goes up. But then if you keep going right through it by 3 or 4 hours, your hunger actually goes back down to baseline. And what's happened, of course, is that you've shifted into the fasted mode. And what you're doing is now you're pulling all those calories from your body fat stores.
So Brandon, maybe based on what you learned in that interview, you can help me to see if I'm doing things correctly. So after dinner, I don't have a snack either before I go to bed.
Right.
So I have a full dinner so that I'm not hungry going to sleep. And then when I wake up, I don't really have a big breakfast either. I might have a snack so that I'm not hungry between morning and before lunchtime. So I do that. Am I doing things correctly?
Well, I can only offer some suggestions based on what I've heard Dr. Fung say. I'm certainly no expert in this. So, but Don, you're saying you don't really eat a breakfast, you have some kind of snack before, and then your next meal is lunch, basically.
That's correct, yeah.
Right. Well, I think it sounds like you're really not overeating, so that's a positive. And the gist of this conversation I had with Dr. Fung was just about having that space of time where you're not eating, the value of that, because it's kind of like, he talks about this fed versus fasted state. When you're eating, you're obviously in this fed state, and that lasts for some time as the food is being digested. And when you after that process, you shift into this fasting state, and it's a very helpful process for the body. It's a very healthy thing. It's when your body is basically it's in resting mode. It's starting to, there's this process of autophagy where it's eliminating like dead matter and unwanted recycling cell material and things like that. So fasting is something that used to happen naturally before we really embraced this kind of snacking culture. People would have dinner and that would be it. That would be it for the day. And that's what kids were encouraged to do. If a child said, I'm still hungry, it was like, well, you should have eaten more dinner. Maybe you get this from your wife, Don.
Actually, for dinner, I try to eat a lot because I do get hungry if I don't when I go to sleep, and it's kind of uncomfortable and I can't really sleep well. So I do make sure that for dinner, I'm extra full. Like I would eat more than I would for lunchtime. I would, eat like 3 hamburgers, for example. That's a little much, but I try to be as full as possible so that when I go to sleep and during midnight and onwards, I'm not hungry and I don't get woken up by that feeling of hunger. But people have told me it's not really healthy to go to sleep full. I don't know if Dr. Fong has spoken about this, but that's what I do. Is it unhealthy? What do you think on that?
I would just be speculating, and this is based largely on my own experience. I avoid eating too much at nighttime. I try to kind of taper it down. Actually, my dad has this saying about, you should eat like a king for breakfast, eat like a prince for lunch, and eat like a pauper for dinner time. And I roughly follow that, and I find I think it may help my sleep, because you think metabolism is a very full-on process for the body. There's so much. It's how we're creating energy and everything. There's so much going on to break this food down into energy, and if you're putting that on your body at nighttime when you're sleeping, there's going to be less resources allocated to kind of resting the body and rejuvenating things, from what I understand.
Well, maybe I should eat less then, because I've had the experience where I would wake up during the middle of the night. I don't know if there's a correlation or a connection between my eating a lot for dinner and waking up. Maybe I should be more aware of it. But thank you so much for coming on today. It was a great topic, and it was a great discussion.
Great to see you again, Don.
Thank you. And to see that full Vital Signs interview with Dr. Fung, just go to your browser and enter ept.ms/kidney-deto. That's DETO. All right, coming up, the National Transportation Safety Board has flagged 68 bridges across 19 states for urgent safety assessments to prevent collapses from ship collisions. We have the details after the break. Tick bites are sending more people to the ER than any year since 2019. Now students in New York are stepping in to help track the surge. More in just a moment here on NTD News Today.
There's cultures that have been lost, but this culture hasn't been. The artist is showing us our sense of who we are, where we came from. You look at his hat. His hat is knitted probably by a man, because a man traditionally knitted the hats. That hat tells you the story of who this person is, what his place in the culture is, the animals around him. Everything's all contained in the messages in the hat. And the tool that he's carrying over his shoulder. This is a centuries-old tool that has been able to rework the mountains. Those traditions are invaluable, and if we don't honor those traditions, then we're rootless. The artist is showing us the value of maintaining our culture and respecting our culture.
To celebrate our newest launch, Rev 7, I'm bringing you an amazing introductory offer, plus an exclusive overstock sale that you're not going to want to miss. Rev 7 is our premium energy drink that tastes great and gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. That's because there's no sugar and no caffeine. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7 that for a limited time you can try our 3-pack absolutely free. Or check out our Percale bed sheets. I can't believe I'm even going to say this. Every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes only $29.88, even the queens and kings. Inventory is extremely limited, so order now.
The National Transportation Safety Board is raising bridge safety concerns across the U.S. They've identified 68 bridges across 19 states that need assessments to prevent potential collapse caused by ship collisions. That includes iconic structures like the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco and the Brooklyn Bridge in New York City. To dive into this, NTD's Kerry Dunst spoke with Paul Fix III. He's an automotive journalist at Car Coach Reports. Take a look.
Good to see you, Paul. Thanks for joining. In light of the Francis Scott Key Bridge, tragically in Baltimore completely collapsing because a ship rammed into it, shed a new light on bridge vulnerability. What are your reactions to this new report from the National Transportation Safety Board?
Well, there's a lot of concerns going on here, especially because a lot of these major bridges have an incredible amount of traffic going across it every single day. A lot of people rely on these bridges for their daily commutes or visiting family or just going shopping or driving around in general. And the fact that these bridges are at risk of collapse, and to be specific, they're at risk of if being impacted by a ship, that these bridges would more than likely collapse. This is an assessment analysis from the NTSB here that essentially just means that there's a lot of concerns to be had. These 68 bridges are the big major bridges, but there's many thousands of bridges that could need repairs that are over 70 years old. A lot of them could be really, really small, from your tiny little town bridge that just goes over a tiny little stream, all the way up to, like I said, these 68 very large bridges. And there's millions of dollars, billions of dollars at stake here. And of course, people's daily lives that are at risk. So there's a lot of concerns to be had as we dig into this.
Yeah, indeed. What is the process to ensure bridges are safe? Is this just a routine sort of thing that engineers, are deployed on a certain schedule, or, are there signs of wear and tear and then people are deployed? How do we keep our nation's bridges safe to begin with?
Yeah, there are associations inside and outside of the government that are in charge of and analyzing these bridges, and they should be doing them at normal intervals. But sometimes when the funding for those analyses are left to the state or the feds or some local municipalities, sometimes that falls by the wayside when there's a lot of other things to be spending money for infrastructure on. And this is something that actually falls by the wayside quite often. So in some cases, there are bridges that haven't been analyzed in over 30 years, and not even once. And you'd think that that'd be a large concern, but now, especially after the Key Bridge collapsing, people are starting to take notice, and with the NTSB stepping up and saying, all right, we're going to do a full analysis and we're going to spread it out across the entire country and see what major infrastructure points can be analyzed and repaired. And again, this is millions, billions of dollars at stake here to make sure that our roads stay in one piece.
Yeah, I guess the report is confronting, but ignorance is bliss, right? Better to know that work needs to be done. So what comes next? Where does the money come from to then begin these assessments and start deploying resources?
Yeah, absolutely. So there is a large fund. It's $4.9 billion of available funding specifically for major bridge projects, and that's through the Bridge Investment Program. And there's up to $500 million for repairing bridges in rural areas through the Competitive Highway Bridge Program, and this is all through the Department of Transportation. And actually, the requirements for getting this funding has recently changed since Sean Duffy became the head of the Department of Transportation, and he removed a lot of roadblocks, you could say, that were put in place by previous administrations, essentially trying to make sure that these states and local municipalities can have easier access to this funding so that they can repair these bridges.
And Paul, God forbid our viewers should ever need this advice, but could you please review what you should do if you ever drive off a bridge into the water? What you can do preventatively, like do you need something in your car? And you're not going to really have time to react. You're going to need to know what to do immediately. So yes. What should our viewers do should that ever happen?
Absolutely. Very serious situation if you ever find yourself driven off a bridge and you end up in water. Now, if you end up falling and there's not water, first of all, that's a big drop, and definitely brace yourself for impact. There's not much that you can do depending on the level of the drop. But if you're falling into water, the first thing is the higher you are, the harder that water is when you hit it. And that impact could shatter glass. It could damage the car, which would set off the airbag if the front bumper hits hard enough. So there's just before you even get into the water, there's a lot of scary things that could happen. Now, what you should prepare for yourself is a glass breaking tool. They're very cheap. They're about the size of a pen. They're about this big. Sometimes they're even smaller. And they have a spring-loaded puncture system where if you hit it against glass, it'll instantly shatter that glass. And it's very important to have one easily accessible to you. Put it in your center console, put it on your keychain, somewhere easy to access. And I'm going to say don't panic, but it's very difficult in this situation. But you're going to want to try to make sure that your family is safe. Any very, very important things, like if you only need one thing, like if you need a key or if you need your phone, maybe don't reach for everything. Maybe only reach for that one thing, because getting out of the car is going to be your top priority. Break that glass, pull yourself out. If you have something cloth to protect yourself from getting cut by the glass on your way out, also very important. And try to get out as quickly as possible. Now, if you do end up submerged in the water and your vehicle's filling with water, you don't want to break out immediately. You want to wait until the car fills with water, then break the glass. And the reason why is because there's a pressure differential inside the vehicle. And if the car is only half filled with water, and you break the glass early, it could cause a rush of water, which could send the broken glass into you, into your family members. It could rush whatever's in the water into the car. But if you wait until your car slowly fills with water, break the glass, and swim on out, you should be okay. Again, very dangerous situation, and definitely go and get yourself a glass breaking tool.
Hundreds of Falun Gong practitioners are marching in New York City today, calling for an end to the Chinese Communist Party's repression tactics taking place in the U.S. July 20th, 2025 marks 26 years since the CCP began brutally persecuting practitioners of the peaceful meditation discipline. Let's go now to a live view of the scene with NTD's Flora Hua there. Flora?
Steph? Yes, Don, I'm here in New York City's Chinatown. Today is an important day for millions of people around the globe. 26 years ago, on this day, the Chinese Communist Party officially started a brutal nationwide persecution against the faith group Falun Gong in China. That persecution continues to this day. And behind me, you can see hundreds of Falun Gong practitioners gathering for a grand parade. And Don, guys, who else is joining the parade today? The artists from Shenyun Performing Arts. I just had a chance to talk to one of them. Let's hear what they had to say.
Well, I personally have wanted to join the parade every year. Back before there was Shenyun Performing Arts, I would actually go to the parades in Washington. I'd sometimes fly from different places in the country around the world to join them like many other people. And after we joined Shenyun, personally, I wasn't able to attend them anymore most of the time because we have our rehearsals and our own work schedule. So I think with the persecution going on as long as it has, and with seeing how the Chinese Communist Party is trying to export persecution to America, I think myself and a lot of my colleagues felt that this was a really good time for us to join, to come out in the open with our fellow Falun Gong practitioners, to talk about the persecution still happening in China, to draw attention to what is happening there, because every one of us here is represented by maybe thousands or even more people in China who nobody will ever hear about. And also for us in Shenyun, many people in the company have experienced persecution firsthand. Ever since Shenyun was founded in 2006, the Chinese Communist Party has always tried to stop us from performing, try to cancel our theater contracts, try to pressure government officials and theaters to cancel our shows, try to stop media sponsors. But the last couple of years, and the last year in particular, we've seen an escalation of this. We point directly to leaked documents that we got from China the last couple of years, talking about an escalation in an attempt to crush Shenyun and crush Falun Gong more broadly, internationally, and in America in particular. And so we've seen death threats to our headquarters in New York, just a couple hours from here, death threats to individual performers and family members, threats to the theaters, threats to congressmen who support us, threats to the president, just threatening anybody who dares to stand up and speak up for Falun Gong or for Shenyun and against oppression and for freedom.
Yes, Don. And did you know the Chinese regime has sought to export its persecution beyond China's borders and even right here to the United States? Shenyun artists have been using their performances to raise awareness about the ongoing persecution of Falun Gong, and they have faced serious threats, including bomb threats and even death threats, believed to come from Beijing. Here's what Li Shai told me.
When the persecution of Falun Gong first started, one of the things that we would tell people 25 years ago was if you do not speak up about what's happening to Falun Gong, it will happen to other groups as well. If they came after Falun Gong, then they also go after Uyghurs, they're going after other groups in China, and if they can come after Shenyun in America with attacks in media, if they can manipulate our media, manipulate our government officials, manipulate our courts and our legal system to try to attack what they deem as an enemy to Beijing, they can go after any group. And we've seen this in Hollywood, we've seen this in the NBA, we've seen this in intellectual property issues, we've seen this in all levels of American society. And so I think it's really important. I think as Americans we're seeing more and more that we should stand shoulder to shoulder on this to defend our freedoms, defend the freedoms of Chinese people, to try to help them get back as much of it as they can and stop the human cost, which has been going on for way too long. And we're all connected because, for example, if the organ harvesting in China doesn't stop, how many more Americans are going to unwittingly be accomplices to murder by getting organs from somebody who is a prisoner of conscience, and they don't even know it. And so I think by letting people know what the choices they have and how what we do here matters, I think it empowers Americans. I think specifically now there's a bill that's going to the Senate, the Falun Gong Protection Act, which is really important. If people want to do something, they can write to their senators, ask them to support it. I think learning more about Falun Gong and the persecution we face on a website like faluninfo.net, faluninfo.net, or learning about Shenyun and how our performers have been affected by the persecution and why we do what we do, why we work so hard, why we travel all over the world like this nonstop. You can go to shenyun.org and learn about that. So I think we want people to understand better, know more about this.
Reporting from New York City, I'm Flora Hua. Back to you, Don.
Okay, Flora, thank you so much for that important report. Next, more people are landing in the ER with tick bites this year than at any time since 2019. That's according to new data from the CDC. In New York City, a group of students is working to track tick activity across the region. Take a look.
In the woods an hour north of New York City, students are on high alert. Not for bears or coyotes, but something much smaller. Ticks. Some the size of a sesame seed. They're dragging cloth through the terrain to collect the critters, and they're finding more arachnids than usual. Dr. Tom Daniels is the director of Fordham University's Louis Calder Center.
It's been a really hot year for ticks. We're seeing numbers that are generally about 30 to 40% higher than we saw last year, for example.
The bulk of the students' findings are black-legged ticks, responsible for spreading Lyme disease. Other species included the American dog tick, which is linked to Rocky Mountain spotted fever, and the invasive Asian longhorned tick.
But there's speculation, of course, that one of the reasons we're seeing more ticks, not just number, but even a higher diversity, has to do with global warming, and that certainly is a factor. We're seeing ticks in areas that we hadn't seen them before. But the black-legged tick numbers go up and down from one year to the next, and we don't always know why it is that happens.
Scientists also point to a soaring deer population and people moving to more wooded areas.
The wildlife is here, the ticks are here, and now we're here, and that raises our risk.
His lab also operates the Fordham Tick Index, tracking tick activity across the region. This summer, it's consistently showing high risk for tick bites in the tri-state area, the region around southern New York, Connecticut, and northern New Jersey. More tick bites means a greater risk for tick-borne illnesses like Lyme disease, which affects nearly 500,000 Americans annually, according to the CDC. Dr. Bruce Faber is an infectious disease physician.
Only about 3 or 4% of ticks carry Lyme. Nevertheless, there's so many ticks and so many tick bites in certain areas. If you go hiking in the woods in the Northeast right now and you don't do anything to protect yourself, it would not be unusual to see that individual come back with 5 or 10 ticks all over their body.
Experts are urging precautions like using tick repellent, wearing long sleeves, and checking yourself and pets after activities outside.
Discover the ancient secret to vitality and longevity with Puretang Black Ginseng. Crafted from premium 6-year-old Korean ginseng, each root is carefully nurtured for over 2,260 days, undergoing a traditional 9-round handcrafted process of steaming and drying to unlock full potency and absorption. Experience pure natural energy with Puretang Black Ginseng. Order now at puretang.com.
Welcome to NTD News Today. I'm Don Ma. Here are today's top stories. Newly released records say the FBI and the NSA had low confidence in 2016 that Russia was behind an alleged hack of DNC servers. But this detail was left out of a memo to then President Obama. A driver in Los Angeles crashed into a crowd, leaving at least 30 injured. The driver was pulled from the vehicle and shot after the crash. ICE launches a crackdown on illegal immigration at 2 cannabis farms in California. Hundreds arrested, plus reports of agents coming under fire. Our panel weighs in on the situation. Is Tesla trying to block the release of crash data from its driver assistance systems? We talked to an auto industry expert. Hundreds of Falun Gong practitioners are marching in New York City today to call for an end to the Chinese Communist Party's repression tactics taking place in the U.S.
This is NTD News Today, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. An update on the 2016 Russia-Trump investigation. Records released by DNI Tulsi Gabbard's office showed that in 2016, the FBI and the NSA had low confidence that Russia was behind an alleged hack of Democratic National Committee servers. Despite this, a memo was prepared for President Barack Obama that blamed Russia for the hack and leak 2 days after the FBI and NSA issued this assessment. Their assessment wasn't mentioned in the memo either. This is according to records released by the DNI's office. The revelation is the latest twist in the decades-long controversy and lies at the very root of the now discredited Russia collusion narrative that Trump allegedly conspired with Russia to influence the 2016 election. Special counsel Robert Mueller ended his investigation with no evidence to support collusion. The suspect behind a car crash incident in East Hollywood, Los Angeles, has been identified as 29-year-old Fernando Ramirez. He allegedly drove a Nissan Versa into the crowd of people around 2 a.m. Saturday morning, leaving at least 30 injured.
Looked out, saw the car go into a bunch of people. So I ran over there. 2 gunshots, car crash, and then more gunshots after. So that's what so far says.
The first responder described the scene as very chaotic.
Apparently, there was a vehicle that had somebody that lost consciousness inside the vehicle.
After the crash, bystanders pulled the driver from the vehicle. He was then shot in the back by someone across the street. He was transported to the hospital and is currently listed in stable condition. The shooter remains at large. Authorities haven't released any information regarding the driver's immigration status. Immigration raids in California. ICE agents swarmed 2 cannabis farms in a large-scale crackdown on illegal immigration. Hundreds were taken into custody, and officials say agents came under fire during the operation. To break it down, I spoke with Mike Leon. He's the Director of Strategy and the Free and Equal Elections Foundation and the host of the Can We Please Talk podcast. I also brought on Tony Kinnett, national correspondent for Daily Signal. Take a look.
Don, I love the way you just asked this question, because this is a 2 wrongs don't make a right thing. So let me start with the high level part of this, right? With California's legal marijuana industry and $5 billion or so that industry brings in, right? These 2 farms in Camarillo out there in California, 361 folks were arrested, right, in these raids. 4 of them had been prior convicted of crimes. That's 0.011%. 4 of them have been prior convicted of crimes, right? But when you drill a little bit more into the numbers, in that arrest, 14 of them were minors, right? Now, California obviously has where if you're, within the age of 12 to 16, you can work after school hours on a farm. If you're between 16 up until about 18, you can obviously work as well. If you don't go to school, you have to prove that you don't have to be in school. But no one under the age of 21 is supposed to be working at a cannabis farm. So this is kind of one of these things where it's like these two wrongs don't make a right. Like if the farm was actually having workers there that are underage and all of these day workers that are illegal now, according to the new administration, right? It's been since January. We've been 6 months into this administration. You've known about the policy changes of this administration. You know now that undocumented is not a civil offense anymore. It's a criminal offense. So if this farm had all of these workers that were working there, forget about the wages for a second and what they make and things like that, and the child labor stuff just for a second. If you knew that all of these folks were undocumented and are now considered illegal according to the new laws of the United States of America, that isn't coming upon you to fix that and ratify that. And so this is, again, two wrongs don't make a right. It's part of the larger narrative of 2025 and social media postings of all of these ICE raids and things like that. But it doesn't change the fact that all these folks were potentially there illegal, and there were some minors that were working at the farm as well, when the farm had said there wasn't any minors that were working there. So again, two wrongs do not make a right, Don.
And Tony, same question to you. And is there enough evidence to confirm forced child labor, trafficking, or exploitation?
I don't see any evidence right now of forced child labor and trafficking in this particular situation. Those are heavy allegations. I like to see the evidence on the plate in front of me before I make one like that. But I would like to say one thing, and I think this is something that Mike will agree with me on for sure, regarding the packing plant in Omaha, regarding the cannabis farm in California. And I don't really see any reason to treat this farm specially because it's a cannabis farm. Again, whether it's making hemp for blunts or for making rope, it doesn't really matter. To me, in this situation, it's a farm that's not part of the food chain, as one side of the aisle has been saying narratively. The other side, I think, is dunking on it because it's a pot farm, and so that's easy for conservatives to dunk on. Realistically, though, who's operating these farms? Who's operating these packing plants? Who has been taking advantage of undocumented illegal immigrant labor who have either, A, as we saw in the Nebraska packing plant, they were falsifying E-Verify documents. That is a felony. You can't do that. I can't give someone a fake social security number. That's not allowed. Someone who comes into this country and didn't do so properly, who doesn't have the right TIN, who gives fake E-Verify documents to try to sneak through the system. I want to know, does this individual who owns these cannabis farms, who was a donor to Gavin Newsom, did he know these were illegal immigrants? Did he know these were people who went through the process legally or illegally? That's what I'm more concerned about. I want to cut off the incentive at the source. I want individuals who work in this country to be paid a fair and living wage based on terms they agreed upon, not underselling to sneak around the law. That's not fair to Americans. That's not fair to legal immigrants who came here to work properly. And again, if there are individuals offering these kind of opportunities, we're currently in the middle of an investigation on construction companies hiring illegal immigrants to skirt a lot of standards. I think that what we're looking for in the next couple of weeks is some actual indictments and prosecutions to those who are participating in the exploitation.
So, Mike, you said earlier, two wrongs don't make a right. There's another aspect to this. Your thoughts on reports of ICE agents being fired upon and the fact that DHS Assistant Secretary says sanctuary politicians are demonizing ICE and CBP potentially, contributing to that.
Yeah, well, first off, violence against police officers, I think we're all on the same page on this, is wrong, right? Peacefully protesting, potentially skirting that line of impeding, as we saw in these farm videos, and we saw some folks that were arrested that were part of that 361 number that I mentioned that don't even work at the farm. They're relatives of some of the workers. So again, you get into that gray area, right? But when you start actually trying to harm some of these officers, you're in the wrong. You're in the wrong when you start to do that. But, back to what you just asked on about the second part of this is with respect to politicians and demonizing ICE. Again, folks, I don't know how many times I have to say this when I come on this program, right? Elections have consequences. When, again, I was at the RNC, the signs did not have an asterisk on them. They said mass deportations. The policy wasn't flushed out, but here we are, and the policy is now flushed out. There has been a change with respect to immigration enforcement in this country. You are now 6 months now. You've seen all the stories. Anybody who's out there right now that is in this country right now, if you're undocumented or you're illegal and you're listening to me right now, you happen to be watching NTD News. Thanks for watching. Do me a favor, visit an immigration attorney ASAP and know that you could potentially be sent out of this country. Also, for these local leaders with respect to R&D, these are laws that are on the books. These are why elections have consequences. These are things that the administration, this has nothing to do with whether or not I voted for Donald Trump. This has to do with now the level of frustration I have with people saying, this is not what I signed up for. This is not what I asked for. No, this is exactly what you signed up for. This is exactly what you asked for, because they're enforcing the laws according to the books and according to what the executive branch of the United States government, there's 3 branches. The executive branch is wanting to carry out this policy. It's a change. Before, it was civil. Now it's criminal. And if you are an employer in one of the largest states, back to Tony's point, and you knew that this administration was going to do that, and you knew you had time to comply with getting your workers documented in the proper documentation, and you didn't do that, now you can't run to media, you can't run to politicians to look for that safe haven. I'm starting to get sick of it. If you can see it in my voice, and I know Tony's going to nod along with this, it's because these are all changes that we've all been accustomed to now. And unfortunately, as a media, we're covering these stories. Yeah, some of them are potentially incredibly callous. Some of them involve children of the parents that are being here. But this is what happens when elections have consequences. And now we know 6 months into this, what bears from this. So you have to comply with this stuff, or you risk, potentially going to a detention center or somebody dying like that was trying to evade law enforcement. It would have been better to be captured than actually losing your life over this. So that's what I would answer in terms of your questions, Don.
Okay, Tony, we saw you nodding. What are you thinking?
Well, I mean, again, this is why I love this segment, is because Mike is not only a very reasonable guy, but he also understands what's black and white on the table regarding the data, regarding the laws. These laws are on the books. They've been on the books for a while, despite several administrations on the left and right kind of playing softball as far as prosecutorial discretion is concerned and deciding they don't want to push forward with law. We just saw the Colorado district attorney in one region letting loose an individual who attempted a kidnapping of a child. There is a large problem on the left of individuals who believe that progressive politics allow them to use prosecutorial discretion not to enforce laws on the books. And by the way, the Trump administration is guilty of this too in regards to TikTok. Congress banned the Chinese spyware app TikTok. He hasn't enforced it. I can't stand that. And I don't have a policy prescription for enforce the laws on the books, but this is the case. Also, after 250 years of being a country, you're going to have quite the stack of federal laws that are on the books that are a large spaghetti bowl. So I understand the mess here. That said, regarding the illegal immigration situation, there is also an offer to self-deport. You can make money, you can leave the country, and that 10-year penalty on reapplying for citizenship does not apply to you. Meaning that the only penalty there is for being caught and thrown out of the country for violating immigration law, because not only is it, as Mike alluded to, the civil problem of coming in the wrong way or not filing for migrant status properly or something along those lines, but individuals who do try to, over 5-10 years, evade law enforcement, evade immigration officials, I say take the money, get in the back of line, go through the immigration process the proper way, and then you can join the legal immigrants of this country who are, by the polling data, the most ardent supporters of the current immigration policies. It's like 65-70%, at least according to the latest Ipsos poll.
Okay, Mike, on the topic itself that we're talking about today, some arrested individuals had serious criminal records, while some did not. What is your opinion on whether should public policy treat illegal immigrant workers with no violent history? Should they be treated differently from those that don't?
Well, again, according to the new law, they shouldn't be. And again, these are not my words, Don. Caroline Leavitt back in March, and during the time when Caroline Leavitt said this from the White House press briefing room, we had a very popular immigration attorney who has a couple of high-profile cases on the books right now. And I said, you just heard what Caroline Leavitt said there, because they asked a specific question. I believe it was a CBS News correspondent that was asking how many of so far that have been captured by ICE had actual criminal history. And she said they're all criminals because they're here illegally, right? According to the new law. Now, Don, again, Do you, me, and Tony, do we feel that there is some callousness to some of the? Yeah, I'm sure there's human empathy and compassion in some of these stories. I'm sure there is. And I just mentioned statistically before, 361 arrested, only 4 actually had criminal backgrounds. And that included a rape. I forget the other crime that was included in that. So can ICE discern that right now and do all of that with respect to being thrown things at them and trying to do all of this law enforcement work while they're trying to do and carry out the policies of the administration? They can't be expected to do all of that. So I do think that the president, I do think the president has business leaders in the agriculture sector and the construction sector have all pointed out to the president, like, there has to be a way to do this humane wise while not killing my workforce. But again, back to what we've been talking about. If you have workforce that's not legally having the documentation necessary to work here, then you're gonna get raided. And these are the things that are going to happen. So I don't know, Don, I'm kind of at my wit's end here with all of this, because it's like we keep going around in circles with all of this, but it's like the high level part of this is like the administration has changed this. This is the policy now. So they can't discern. Go ahead, Tony.
So sorry, I don't mean to jump in. Just to build off of that, I think that there is an answer so that we're not going around in circles, because these aren't new laws. It's simply bringing forward the law through full prosecutorial discretion, at least according to what's on the books and federal statutes. The issue is that in a lot of cases, you have sanctuary states who do know where there are illegal immigrants who are working in various processes, or perhaps they're working with an immigration official, immigration attorney, they're going through the asylum process, and they are in areas that there might be other illegal immigrants who do have violent criminal records and history. And ICE has asked, the Department of Homeland Security has asked, if you work in a state where you have these databases, these records, please share them with us so that we don't, when we do come to arrest the individuals who are committing rape or who are have a violent criminal history, domestic abuse is one that pops up quite frequently in these, or you're looking at the illegal business practices, right? Taking advantages of workers for cheap labor to skirt the laws, that it's not targeting just an open area. But when Gavin Newsom has forbade local law enforcement with working with federal law enforcement officials, when Karen Bass of Los Angeles has forbade, when J.B. Pritzker has forbade, when Massachusetts legislators have forbade, now you have a situation where ICE still has to uphold federal law. There are still violent criminals in these areas, but now they don't get the kind of intel and the resources that are necessary. And unfortunately, a lot of this is political stunting. It's not necessarily done to protect the dignity and compassion. They run certain aspects of those, but it's very hard for me to take Karen Bass seriously about her empathy and compassion for individuals who are just there to work and live when she hasn't even signed off on the permits to rebuild huge parts of the Palisades in Los Angeles, and that she allowed her own police officers in the LA Sheriff's Office to be followed around by these groups, threatening them, throwing concrete at their heads. As you pointed out, yep, that's attempted murder. And it creates a system that is not going to make it easier for federal authorities to discern. And by the way, I do think that for people who are coming here, they came here illegally, but all they have done is made a life here, they've worked. I'm for lessening the amount of time or of a penalty for some kind of an immigration patriotization process. But we have to actually get the cooperation of states and the federal government to make that happen. Otherwise, you can't, there's an old expression that you can't pan through a tsunami, meaning that you can't pan gold out of a rushing, roaring amount of water. Right now, we need state and federal cooperation so that we can sift through this a little more specifically.
Okay, Tony, but let me ask you one thing. Upholding federal law is one thing, but is it overreach in this situation at least, or using excessive force to have armored military vehicles, tear gas, and crowd control weapons at an agricultural work site, Tony?
So I'll make this answer quick because I don't want to double stack here against Mike and his time. But the short answer is I don't think the premise is quite accurate on that. They didn't show up to the farm to tear gas the workers. The tear gas didn't drop until individuals started throwing rocks at the police, which is attempted murder. So it's not as though they're dropping into the area, dropping some tear gas and some CN right out of the helicopters or throwing in the Humvees. Given the threats to law enforcement, a 700% increase. Given the domestic terror threats, there is currently Benjamin Song, an Antifa terror cell leader who is on the run after leading a terror cell of 10 individuals, 12 individuals maybe now, that were going to assault ICE officers and kill them outside of Alvarado, Texas. The threats are there. I don't think it's overkill to go in secure. And like some of the footage shows, there's individuals there that are very large bodied with the pink hair, stabbing a Mexican flag into the spokes of a Humvee or attempting to, and they're right at that photo, actually, really good B-roll team. That kind of stuff isn't just general protests. That's when you get into the riot territory, which I think Mike has delineated rather well.
Coming up, is Tesla trying to block the release of crash data from its driver assistance systems? We talk to an auto industry expert after the break.
My mom and dad were traditional Asian parents. Now, my father would go to work before I woke up in the morning, and then he would come home too tired to play with me. I tell my son, I love you every single day. I love you. Now, my dad has never said that to me. Not because he doesn't love me, but because culturally it wasn't comfortable for him. So I teased him the other day and I said, how come you never say that to me? And he said, you're too old now. Now that he's a grandfather, he says, I love you to my son every time he sees him. My advice to all the fathers out there, forget the material things, forget the cultural restrictions. They grow up way too fast for you to waste even a single precious minute or moment.
Say bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Baby, you see, you're so right for me, and I'm right for you. I love the things you do, like sweet tasting wine. Your lips are so divine. Your loving turns me on. My lonely days are gone. That's why I'm never gonna let you go. Never gonna let you go. Babe, I'm never gonna let you go. No, no, never gonna let you go. Baby, never gonna let you go. Never gonna let you go. Babe, I'm never gonna.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Never gonna let you go.
We said we'd never give in to a meltdown.
Okay.
And we'd never babysit with a screen. We said we'd never let the toys take over.
Mariella.
Never leave the house looking, well, and never let them out of our sight. Skylar, come here. Cars get hot fast, and kids can be at risk. Before you leave the car, always stop, look, lock.
Is Tesla trying to bury the truth about autopilot crashes? Joining us now to discuss is Lauren Fix, founder of Car Coach Reports. Lauren, good to see you. Good afternoon. So I have a simple question for you, where perhaps the answer might not be so straightforward. Is Tesla trying to block the release of crash data involving driver assistance systems?
Well, sure, because obviously there's a lawsuit involved. And the Washington Post has actually been the one that's been the first one to create a lawsuit against Tesla and to tell the courts, you need to release this information. Of course, Tesla's using the standard line of, well, it's proprietary information. We can't release the software because our competitors will then know how we do this. And of course, what version of that? So it's obviously, it sounds like a cover up. I can understand that you want to protect your investment in your software and your knowledge. But if somebody dies, that opens up a whole different can of worms. You've got the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration involved, the Department of Transportation, NTSB, all of these are factors. But at the same time, we have Waymo and Cruise and other companies pushing out autonomous cars when we need to find out as consumers, are these vehicles safe?
But here's the thing, Lauren, as you've mentioned in other platforms, if Tesla drivers already have access to crash-related software and hardware data, what is the reason for keeping that same data, right, from regulators or public?
Well, I would assume that Elon Musk and the brand of Tesla have said, listen, we don't want this out there because it could open up other accidents that have happened, opening them up to other liability, other lawsuits. And so I can understand why they're trying to protect themselves and, of course, their stock investment. But when you're looking at autonomous cars, as they're calling it, they're coming out with the robo-taxi at the same time. And this is a big dispute. As soon as I posted this story on my Car Coach Reports website, of course, all the Tesla lovers went and attacked me as the Tesla haters attacked them. It's kind of amusing. But the truth is, what consumers need to know is there are 5 different levels of autonomy. And when they're talking about autopilot or FSD, which is a forward self-driving, which is what Elon Musk sells it as, consumers think that it's self-driving and I can sleep behind the wheel, eat behind the wheel. I kind of have my eyes kind of sort of on the road, but the car has this. And I've talked to people who aren't in the industry who truly believe that this is something that is in play. And the reality of it is, just so people know, these 5 levels. 0 is there's nothing. You've got your anti-lock brakes. Level 1 is what we've had for a long time. Blind spot detection, active cruise control, those type of things that save you from an accident. Every manufacturer is offering level 2. That's when you're getting that intervention, when you're trying to change lanes. There's a vehicle there. You're like, oh, and the vehicle pushes you back. That is level 2. That is lane centering as well. The only brand that has approval from the federal government for level 3, and this is on a global level, is Mercedes-Benz. They've been working on level 3. So when you're looking at Super Cruise or Blue Cruise, Super Cruise is offered by General Motors, Blue Cruise by Ford, and other brands have things too. They have Pro Pilot and so forth. Those are lane centering. So they are level 2. Level 3 is not available to consumers as of now, even though Tesla's saying their level 4, which would be the next step beyond, is there and they're using it and they're testing it. So you are the guinea pig. And so that's why a lot of people are concerned. That's why you've got all the government 3- and 4-letter agencies saying, well, wait a minute here. But at the same time, there are no regulations today from the federal government, even under the Trump administration, that says, hey, this is what autonomous cars should be. And I know that Elon Musk was trying to get that put into play. A lot of brands are asking for that so they know where the lines are. Like, what makes a self-driving car? Even though they're slowly rolling out robo-taxis, they've had Waymo for a while. Uber's had a vehicle out for a while. And of course, there was an accident and someone died because someone came out between 2 cars, because people do things. And it's not the same thing as a car that only understands logic. So that's where we're having a lot of issues. And when someone dies or someone's injured, or a lot of people are in a part of a car accident, that opens up the question of, are these safe? Do consumers want them? Some people do, obviously. They love the technology, and I'm not anti-tech. I just like to be pro-safety. And there's a point, obviously, that's too much, but when we see things like people putting pylons on the hood of cars like Ubers, what ends up happening is they stop because they're confused. They don't know what's going on. And you find that a lot in California. They think it's funny, but it really causes a traffic jam because that vehicle stops. We've seen cars going the wrong way down one-way streets, going through wet concrete sidewalks, walkways, roads that are freshly paved, because it doesn't know that this work is being done. Where you as a human can look ahead and say, oh, there's an ambulance. Oh, I shouldn't go down this road. There's not that type of live communication. Although it can tell if another vehicle is there, it cannot tell what other things that are happening around it.
Well, Lauren, we're a bit short on time today, so we're going to have to leave it there. I wish we had more time, but thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, Tom.
Coming up, legal troubles are intensifying for former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro. Bolsonaro's home was raided. He has to wear an ankle bracelet, and he's facing up to 43 years in prison. Our Latin America correspondent, Narian Pasdar, is standing by live. A big shift for cryptocurrency. President Trump signs the Genius Act, setting federal rules for stable coins, cryptos backed by the US dollar. What it means for your digital wallet, coming up.
Is deep-sea fish oil really healthy? Due to pollution in the oceans, most fish contain heavy metal elements and radioactive substances. That's why it's so important to choose a pure source of omega-3. Puritan Green Vegetable Omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds, which are rich in nutrients and minerals. It effectively improves brain power and is beneficial to the heart's health. Puritan Green Vegetable Omega-3. Eat 2 a day and you'll feel brand new.
To celebrate our newest launch, Rev 7, I'm bringing you an amazing introductory offer, plus an exclusive overstock sale that you're not going to want to miss. Rev 7 is our premium energy drink that tastes great and gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. That's because there's no sugar and no caffeine. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7 that for a limited time you can try our 3-pack absolutely free. Or check out our Percale bed sheets. I can't believe I'm even going to say this. Every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes, only $29.88. Even the queens and kings. Inventory is extremely limited, so order now.
We come from a long line of farmers, and there's a sense of pride with being part of these multi-generational businesses. But there's also a significant amount of pressure. My senior year of high school, my dad made the decision that this world no longer needed him in it. I don't know if he was overwhelmed by the bills and checks that weren't going to be coming in because of the strawberries dying off, but it breaks my heart that my dad made a permanent decision for a temporary issue. Don't feel like you have to go through it alone.
Farmers have to take care of their physical and their mental health, because what's a farm without a farmer?
In the mornings, that's my time. Watching the sun come up, I can have a cup of coffee and exercise if I want to. It helps me start the day with a sense of gratitude.
Yay!
Every day is a new opportunity. Don't forget to check in on yourself. Love, your mind.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
Legal troubles for former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro are intensifying. President Trump keeps supporting Brazil's most popular right-leaning politician, first imposing tariffs on Brazil, then sending a letter to Bolsonaro. Let's bring in our Latin America correspondent who's standing by live. Arian, good to see you. What exactly happened this week? Bolsonaro's home was raided and he now has to wear an ankle bracelet.
Hey Don, good to see you. Thanks for having me. That's exactly right. So just this week, Brazilian police raided the home and the political headquarters of former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro. Now, Bolsonaro is currently facing charges for allegedly trying to overthrow the government after the 2022 presidential elections. That's because some Bolsonaro supporters stormed government buildings because they thought the election was stolen. Actually very similar to what happened on January 6 in DC. Just that in Brazil it happened on January 8 and 2 years later. So exactly 2 years and 2 days after the January 6 incident. So a lot of similarities there, but let's get back to the raids this week. Those raids, they were ordered by Brazil's Supreme Court. The court also ordered that Bolsonaro has to wear an ankle bracelet, can't leave his house at night. He's not allowed to communicate with foreign diplomats or approach any embassies, can't use social media, and he also is not allowed to communicate with anybody else who's facing investigations by Brazil's Supreme Court, which includes the son of former President Jair Bolsonaro, who's Eduardo Bolsonaro, living in the US in exile at the moment. And the prosecution in Brazil is seeking now to put former President Bolsonaro behind bars for 43 years. That's the sentence they are seeking. Bolsonaro commented on the ongoing trial after the raids on Thursday. Let's take a look.
There's no doubt that the court will convict me, so much so that I'm not even being judged by the full court. It's by a specific panel where the Supreme Court has a certain amount of influence over the others, so I have no doubt I'll be convicted.
So, Don, I just want to add real quick, as I said already, and I just want to repeat that this trial is still ongoing. It's not clear if Bolsonaro really has to go to prison, and if so, for how long. Don?
Now, Arian, in this interview we just saw, Bolsonaro also said that he knows President Trump likes him. For example, saying that he was invited to Trump's inauguration, besides only 3 other heads of state, despite the fact that Bolsonaro isn't even in office anymore. What exactly did Trump do this week to support Bolsonaro?
Yeah, so first of all, I think it started last week when Trump imposed a 50% import tariffs on goods from Brazil. Trump at the time sent a letter to the current Brazilian government saying that the goal of this tariff is to counter what Trump calls a witch hunt against Bolsonaro. And then this week, just a few days ago, Trump also sent a letter to Bolsonaro himself, voicing his support, saying that the trial should end. And Trump also said that he's concerned about attacks on free speech, both in the US and in Brazil. And just a few days ago, Trump also explained his support for Bolsonaro. Let's take a look.
President Bolsonaro is not a dishonest man. He loves the people of Brazil. He fought hard for the people of Brazil. He negotiated trade deals against me for the people of Brazil, and he was very tough. And he was tough because he wanted to do a good deal for his country. He was not a dishonest man. And I believe it's a witch hunt, and it shouldn't be happening.
Also, Don, kind of interesting, Trump and Bolsonaro, they're actually pretty similar in the way they do politics, to the degree that some people call Bolsonaro the Latino version of President Trump. Don?
And what does Brazil's current government say about Trump's tariffs and his support for Bolsonaro? Has the current president responded?
Yeah, so the current president in Brazil is left-leaning Lula da Silva, and after Trump imposed the 50% tariffs, Lula said that he rejects any kind of blackmail, is the word he used. And then he also said that he will not take any orders from and I quote here, from a gringo. Now, for those who don't know, a gringo is a term that Latinos use to talk about foreigners, especially Americans. Now, in Brazil, gringo isn't necessarily a bad word, doesn't necessarily have negative connotations. It depends on the situation. And in this situation, Don, a foreign head of state calling the president of the United States a gringo, that was not meant in a positive way, for sure not. Also, Don, it really remains to be seen how this all plays out. Trump imposing the tariffs on Brazil. There are some conservatives in Brazil who are, of course, against the tariffs because they might hurt Brazil's economy. But at the same time, they acknowledge that, intervention by Trump and intervention by the United States might actually be the last straw, the last hope for Brazil to maintain its democracy and for people to, keep their rights. Don?
Arian, thank you so much for that. Coming up, a big shift for cryptocurrency. President Trump signs the Genius Act, setting federal rules for stablecoins, cryptos backed by the US dollar. What it means for your digital wallet, coming up.
Shenyun Creations, the streaming platform from Shenyun, featuring world-class dance, past programs, and all original music. Masterclasses, behind the scenes, comedy, and more. Explore shenyuncreations.com.
The bladder control aisle. You won't shop here again. Your private business is your own. The constant struggle is over. Now there's a better way. It's HDIS. We home deliver bladder control products. We understand how you feel. For over 25 years, we've home delivered to many of the 20 million Americans who deal with incontinence. We offer all brands. We pay shipping and use plain, unmarked boxes. If we can help you or someone you care for, call for your free product sample pack and $45 in money-saving coupons. Our counselors will help you choose the right product. And unlike stores, we're always in stock. You'll get what you need. Satisfaction guaranteed. HDIS, the better way.
For your free sample pack with your free catalog, $45 in money-saving coupons, and free product samples, call 1-800-701-6159. That's 1-800-701-6159.
We said we'd never give in to a meltdown.
Okay.
And we'd never babysit with a screen. We said we'd never let the toys take over.
Mariella!
Never leave the house looking, well, and never let them out of our sight. Skylar, come here. Cars get hot fast, and kids can be at risk. Before you leave the car, always stop, look, lock.
I tell my son, I love you every single day. Now, my dad has never said that to me. Not because he doesn't love me, but because culturally it wasn't comfortable for him. Now that he's a grandfather, he says, I love you to my son every time he sees him. My advice to all the fathers out there, forget the cultural restrictions. They grow up way too fast for you to waste even a single precious moment.
President Trump has signed a major new crypto law. The Genius Act creates the first federal rules for stablecoins. These are digital tokens backed by the US dollar. I spoke with senior research fellow at the American Institute for Economic Research, Jason Sorens, about what it means for the future of digital payments. Take a look. First off, can you break down the Genius Act for us and what it means for the future of digital assets and cryptocurrencies?
The Genius Act provides a regulatory framework for stablecoins, which are cryptocurrencies that are convertible into a national currency at a specified rate. Right, so a lot of these are pegged to the dollar. So 1-to-1, 1 unit of that dollar pegged stablecoin equals $1. And they're useful because they allow people to convert easily between national currencies and cryptocurrencies. This regulatory framework provides more certainty so that a future administration is not going to be able to legally go after these stablecoins. But it does increase the regulations that they face, for instance, banning interest payments and requiring 100% reserves of low-risk assets backing those stablecoins.
So how significant would you say is signing of this act into law?
It's quite significant because this is the first time that the federal government has provided a regulatory framework for cryptocurrency. And this is something that cryptocurrency companies sought. Despite the fact that it increases regulation on them, it reduces the uncertainty that there will be much more regulation and indeed criminalization potentially in the future of these products. And so this is creating a market that is going to be quite valuable. Again, stablecoins are useful for converting between currencies and cryptocurrencies. They're not really an asset that you want to hold on to because they're sort of like a checking account, an electronic checking account. But it is something that could be quite important for our financial system.
So President Trump was earlier saying that this act is going to make America stronger. Can you talk to us in the context of the importance of this act in making America a world leader in this issue?
Well, cryptocurrency is a new financial technology, and it has definitely a number of potential benefits. For instance, helps investors hedge against currency risk, helps investors, again, undertake electronic transactions quickly and easily. So, I think President Trump wants the U.S. to be a leader on a number of these technologies. This is an area where the Biden administration was very skeptical. In general, the Biden administration did not like financial innovation. and wanted to regulate the financial sector strictly. So this is a move away from that toward allowing more financial innovation with the idea that this is going to benefit investors and ultimately the economy.
So you mentioned the Biden administration. This Genius Act received bipartisan support this time, with many Democrats joining Republicans to back the rules. But this wasn't the case last year when the Democrat-led Senate failed to take up similar stablecoin bills. So why the change now, by your analysis?
That's right. I think what we've seen is that a large number of Democrats do support this legislation, but not the majority of them. And the Biden administration had a more kind of Elizabeth Warren style, kind of ideological hostility to financial innovation, with the idea that financial innovators are going to take advantage of investors and consumers. And they saw themselves as protecting the average American by clamping down on these technologies. But what we found out, especially in the election, is that a lot of Americans, especially young Americans, are quite enthusiastic about being able to participate in these markets. And that was a significant base of Republican support in the last election. So I think a lot of Democrats saw that, and they want to be part of this wave of the future.
Also, Jason, I wanted to talk to you about the package approved this morning of $9 billion in spending cuts. So the package removes roughly $8 billion from foreign and other programs, aid programs, for example, another $1.1 billion from the Corporation for Broadcasting, Public Broadcasting. So, Jason, how important is this? Was it important that Trump got these cuts?
It's incredibly important because you saw that Doge went in and canceled a bunch of contracts and tried to stop a bunch of spending. But legally speaking, they're not able to do that unless Congress authorizes it. So these agencies would still have to spend this money before the end of the fiscal year. And a number of courts, in fact, stepped in and forced the federal government to rehire workers and honor contracts and things like that. So this is important because it now makes those budget cuts law. And I think what you found is that the system worked as it's intended. Congress went in, they looked at the Doge cuts, they found the ones that actually made sense, and those are the ones that they authorized. So, some of the scare stories about, no more funding for, stopping AIDS and HIV prevention, those stories are no longer relevant because those cuts were not authorized. Instead, they really took a scalpel here and cut out the wasteful programs. I think PBS and NPR have been the chopping block for a long time for Republicans. They lean so far left, and there's really no rationale for the taxpayer to be funding ideological media in the landscape that we have today.
More people are landing in the ER with tick bites this year than at any time since 2019. That's according to new data from the CDC. In New York City, a group of students is working to track tick activity across the region. Take a look.
In the woods an hour north of New York City, students are on high alert. Not for bears or coyotes, but something much smaller. Ticks, some the size of a sesame seed. They're dragging cloth through the terrain to collect the critters, and they're finding more arachnids than usual. Dr. Tom Daniels is the director of Fordham University's Louis Calder Center.
It's been a really hot year for ticks. We're seeing numbers that are generally about 30 to 40% higher than we saw last year, for example.
The bulk of the students' findings are black-legged ticks, responsible for spreading Lyme disease. Other species included the American dog tick, which is linked to Rocky Mountain spotted fever, and the invasive Asian longhorned tick.
But there's speculation, of course, that one of the reasons we're seeing more ticks, not just number, but even a higher diversity, has to do with global warming, and that certainly is a factor. We're seeing ticks in areas that we hadn't seen them before. But the black-legged tick numbers go up and down from one year to the next, and we don't always know why it is that happens.
Scientists also point to a soaring deer population and people moving to more wooded areas.
The wildlife is here, the ticks are here, and now we're here, and that raises our risk.
His lab also operates the Fordham Tick Index, tracking tick activity across the region. This summer, it's consistently showing high risk for tick bites in the tri-state area, the region around southern New York, Connecticut, and northern New Jersey. More tick bites means a greater risk for tick-borne illnesses like Lyme disease, which affects nearly 500,000 Americans annually, according to the CDC. Dr. Bruce Faber is an infectious disease physician.
Only about 3 or 4% of ticks carry Lyme. Nevertheless, there's so many ticks and so many tick bites in certain areas. If you go hiking in the woods in the Northeast right now and you don't do anything to protect yourself, it would not be unusual to see that individual come back with 5 or 10 ticks all over their body.
Experts are urging precautions like using tick repellent, wearing long sleeves, and checking yourself and pets after activities outside.
Today marks 26 years since the start of the Chinese Communist Party's persecution of Falun Gong. Our reporter Flora Hua is in Lower Manhattan at a parade of Falun Gong practitioners. They're raising awareness about the persecution of Falun Gong, which even affects practitioners right here in the United States. Many of the dancers from Shenyun Performing Arts practice this peaceful meditation discipline. Flora had the chance to speak with some of them. Flora?
Yes, Don, I'm here at New York City's Chinatown, and behind me a grand parade is happening. Today marks 26 years of a brutal persecution by the Chinese Communist Party, and this parade is very special today because some artists from Shenyun Performing Arts are also here alongside with hundreds of Falun Gong practitioners, and I had a chance to talk to some of them. Let's take a look.
I have many friends who their parents sent them to study abroad here in America because in China they were bullied or they weren't even allowed to go to school because of their beliefs, because they believed in truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance. And I guess their parents, they hoped that they could have a better future here in America. And some of them actually, their parents or their grandparents, their cousins, their aunts, they were actually persecuted themselves. And I know that some have passed away too, so it's dreadful. Yeah.
We also had a chance to talk to Peter Huang. He is a principal dancer at Shenyun Performing Arts. Here's what he had to say.
Mission to revive traditional Chinese culture. For me as a Chinese person, I think it's very meaningful. And at the same time, I'm a Falun Gong practitioner. And the persecution that has been going on for almost 26 years, right? It's 26 years today. I think it is my duty, to let people know about this persecution through my art. And I think this is my meaning of life. And I find it really worthwhile.
Reporting from New York City, I'm Flora Hua. Back to you, Don.
Okay, Flora, thank you so much for that update. Next, plants and insects may be communicating with one another. Their method of communication is even more surprising: sound. Researchers at Tel Aviv University are exploring this, offering new insights into how we understand acoustic communication in nature. Take a look.
New research suggests plants and insects are communicating through ultrasonic sound, undetectable to the human ear. That's according to a study published by researchers at Tel Aviv University and opens a new frontier in the study of acoustic communication in nature. The study suggests female moths can detect ultrasonic distress signals emitted by dehydrated tomato plants, as shown by Dr. Ria Seltzer from the university's School of Zoology.
We found that plants under stress produce these ultrasonic clicks. And this is how it sounds like.
Moths usually lay their eggs on tomato plants to provide food for their larvae after they hatch. By using an experiment using 2 healthy tomato plants, evidence suggests moths use the stress signals to decide the best place to lay their eggs.
One is silent and the other produce stress sounds. And surprisingly, now they prefer to lay their eggs around this silent plant, meaning that they understand that this is a healthier plant than this stress-producing plant.
The discovery could have implications for agriculture and pest control. Professor Lilak Hadani says it could open up possibilities for managing crop health and insect behavior through sound.
Now, we think that this is just the beginning.
So many animals may be responding to different plants. Many animals have interactions with plants. We can think of herbivores, on pollinators, on frugivores, the ones that eat the fruits. Sometimes on predators of herbivores. All these animals may gain some information from the sounds of the plants.
Fossil hunters are digging deep near a riverbank in Illinois to uncover remnants of a world 309 million years old. Here's a closer look at their journey back in time.
Dr. Arjun Maan is a paleontologist and assistant curator at the Field Museum in Chicago. And on a nice day in June, he says he only needs to drive an hour out of the city to reach one of the most fossil-rich sites found on Earth.
Mazon Creek represents one of the most accessible and fossil-abundant localities in the world, where you can easily find plants, animals, insects. As an amateur coming out here, so it's a good way to get involved in natural history. But more than that, the fossils preserved here are exceptional. Right there.
Mazon Creek offers a glimpse back through 309 million years, when Illinois was a lush, tropical, coastal swamp teeming with ancient life. Before you get too excited, there are no tyrannosaurs or velociraptors here. Instead, Mazon Creek holds a dazzling array of ancient plants, insects, jellyfish, and squid-like cephalopods.
Basically, this could have a number of animals in it, shrimp, it could have like jellyfish. This is what you come here for, you know?
A lot of what the folks here uncover is this.
It looks like a piece of wood and
for us, these are really good.
some type of fern.
The site's accessibility means it, in a way, collects the collectors.
My name's Rich Holm. I've been collecting Mazon Creek fossils for the last 20 years. Part of the fun of doing the collecting is it's a bit of a treasure hunt.
If there's a holy grail here, it might be an enigmatic creature known as the Tully monstrum, or Tully monster.
No discussion about Mazon Creek fossils is really complete without talking about the Tully monster. This is a partial one, unfortunately.
It's an extinct marine creature, soft-bodied like a squid, with a long protruding mouth-like appendage. The largest specimens ever found here were about 14 inches in length. Mazon Creek may not be famous yet, but to those who know it, it's a prehistoric paradise, hiding in plain sight.
And that's all for today's news. Thank you for tuning in. Stay with us for NTD Evening News at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific.